Sandy Wiley. Welcome to my mental health channel, where I try to wipe away the stigma of mental illness. I talk coming from almost 20 years as a patient having borderline personality disorder. I talk a lot about other personality disorders, other mental illnesses, and I welcome them in the comments. The one thing I want everyone to know is that I do not have a degree in psychology. I am not a therapist, so I cannot give you a professional opinion. I'm only coming on as a patient of almost 20 years who was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. If you're new to my channel, welcome! Join, sign up, it's free. If you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. And I only ask that everyone please be kind in the comments. Be kind to me and be kind to everyone else who comments. Let's not write anything nasty. You know, we don't have to agree on everything. We only have to agree to be kind to one another. Now, today I'm going to do, I've been doing videos on having no friends. And today's video is, well, we all know I have no friends. I lost all my friends. I had friends in my past. And today I'm going to talk about how I lost them. Now, what I want to focus on in this video is it takes two people to have a relationship. That's any kind of relationship. A business relationship, a friendship, a romance, a marriage. And two people bring to it, you know. And often when a relationship ends, two people were in that relationship. So it was two people's responsibility, that relationship. Even if someone abused you, if you still stayed in that relationship, you were keeping it going. So you were, you know, I'm not blaming someone who was abused. Don't get me wrong there. I'm just saying that if you allowed someone to abuse you, you were keeping that dynamic going. All right? That's a fact. And I'm not blaming the victim because I've been there. All right? I have been there. I am not blaming you. I'm just saying that you were responsible keeping the relationship going. What I'm trying to say is two people are responsible for a relationship. That's all I'm saying here. And when a relationship ends, it's kind of a good idea to figure out what your part, your role in it was. What was your role in how the relationship was, how it fell apart, okay? So I just want to emphasize that I'm not blaming the victim. If you were in an abusive relationship and you stayed in that way too long, then you could look at that, educate yourself in why you stayed in a relationship where someone hurt you, so the next time you don't get into that kind of dynamic. So in this video, I'm trying to go back and looking at my part in why my friendships went south. All right, I'm just looking at my part here, trying to educate myself, you know, about what was my role in the dynamic between my friends. Now, let's take my best friend, Julia, in college. Julia 𝗙cie, I said her last name. Best friend since high school. Best friends through college. We met up years and years later. We broke off. The relationship ended. And then when I had children, I contacted her again and we hooked up. But that never worked out. Usually when relationships end and you try to reconnect, they don't always work out because there was a reason why the relationship, and this is true with lovers too, as well as friendships. They don't usually work out a second time because, you know, there was a reason why the relationship ended the first time. And if you're trying to, I mean, you can, maybe you both matured and it will work out, but that I haven't known it to be that for me. And all the and all my second chances with these relationships, lovers, friends, or whatnot. Now, Julia she was the one who introduced me to my husband, Andrew. Right. She worked in the AV center at college, audiovisual center, where they had movies. You could watch movies and whatnot, all the audiovisual things. And she was doing that to support paying her college. We went to Mass Bay Community College in 𝗚𝗂𝐻 Hills. I got an associate's degree in early childhood education. That's, aside from taking one computer course with my husband in Northeastern University, I only took one computer course in Northeastern at night school. That's the only education I have, just an associate's degree. And so she worked there, and she became good buddies with a girl named Ruth, who was really, she looked just like 𝗖𝗓𝗄𝗃, okay, in fame. Spitting image of her. Ruth was good friends with everyone. She was like funky, like that girl was like 𝗖𝗓𝗄𝗃. Picture 𝗖𝗓𝗄𝗃, that's Ruth. And she was friends with a guy named Kenny, who was best friends with my husband, before he was my husband, Andrew. And so we were all going to go out to lunch to McDonald's. All, Kenny, Andrew, Ruth, Julia. So Julia, being my best friend, said, hey, we're all going out to lunch. You want to come? And I said, yeah, okay. So we went out to lunch, except Kenny couldn't make it. So it was just me, my best friend Julia, Andrew, and Ruth. And that's how I met my husband. And so once I started dating Andrew in college, I had less and less time. And this happens in relationships. I had less and less time to Julia. Or I made less time for her. In fact, I made no time for her. I spent all my time when I wasn't in college studying to get an associate's degree. And then I got a job before I even graduated as a preschool teacher. I spent all my time working. And when I wasn't working full-time, going to school, I was with my husband. When you meet someone new, a lot of times when you are in a new romance, your friends kind of like take a back seat, to your boyfriend, and or your girlfriend if you're a guy. You meet someone new. It's a budding relationship, so you spend all you're working full time, so all your time off is with your partner, and then your buddies kind of take a back seat in the beginning now. So that's what happened. That's kind of why it was my fault that relationship ended with my best friend Julie. And she's the only one who saw she took a lot of shit from me. I slapped that girl silly on the face when I was angry at it one time. This is the only girlfriend who really saw my psychotic borderline. I didn't know I was a borderline then, and she didn't either. I didn't know anything about psychology then. I was only 18, 19, 20, whatever. I knew nothing. I didn't know I had borderline personality disorder. I just knew I got angry all the time, and I would get physically violent with people, including my husband, including my best friend Julia. But she was my only girlfriend, my bestie girl, that ever saw that side of me. Even my best friend Holly of 12 years never saw that side of me. And I was only friendly with Julia since I was a junior in high school. So probably like no more than 4 years, up until I graduated with an associate's degree in Mass Bay. So that friendship was only 4 years. But it was, even though it was only 4 years, it was an intense friendship. I slept over her house. I called her mother 𝗚𝗓𝗄𝗯𝗓𝗄. This is the only girl pal, I called her mother 𝗚𝗓𝗄𝗯𝗓𝗄, like she's my mother, 𝗚𝗚𝗓𝗓𝗚. Her mother called us bookends. Oh, when I call up, what's your other bookend up to? Like, this girl we were tight. All right, she's the only one, like I said, who saw my psychotic side. And then when she introduced me to my husband, I kind of deep sixed her. I spent all my time with my husband. And I didn't even invite her to my wedding. Later on, she told me she was really upset about that. She said, you know, you didn't even invite me to your wedding. I was going to make you a bridesmaid at my wedding. Yeah, that's got to hurt. She was going to make me a bridesmaid, and she said, probably make her sister Bridget the maid of honor. And I didn't even invite her. I kind of like, you know, back then, I kind of used people. You know, I kind of like, you know, this person served this function in my life, and now I no longer need them. So I'm admitting this to you guys because I think it's very important for you guys as well as me to figure out what your role was and why these relationships didn't last, you know? It's important because if you don't learn from the past, how can you go on? How can you change? You know, if you're not going to learn from it, then you're never going to change. You're just going to keep repeating the same thing, you know? You're just going to keep repeating the same thing if you never stop and say, hey, look, what was my part? What was my part in this relationship going south? And my part was I didn't maintain the relationship because I was busy dating Andrew. You know, and Andrew had a big family. He had 3 brothers. He had 2 sister-in-laws. And I was constantly going to parties. Constantly. There was a party for his sister-in-law's 30th birthday. Well, I had to go. Anything that Andrew went to, family related, because I was his girl, I was expected to go. See what I'm saying? So I was constantly barraged, and I had social anxiety. I'm not going to get into all that. I didn't like being barraged into going to all these parties. Someone else might love it. But these people were heavy drinkers and party animals, okay? And it was constant parties, and I was invited, and I was so wrapped up with Andrew and that I completely neglected Julia altogether. So that was all on me, baby. That was all on me. So I want you to do the same. That's just one relationship. I'm going to go on to other ones and see what my role was. But I think it's important that you do the same thing too. You know, if you lost your friends, look back and say, what was my role in the demise of that relationship? Relationships take time. You know, you have to put time in, like anything, right? If I don't put time into doing my channel, then people are going to drop out. If I do one video a month and I don't care what I talk about, you know, people aren't going to, you know, they're not going to watch. Anything worthwhile is worth putting your time and attention to. And if you don't put your time and attention to something, it's going to fall apart. And I did not put my time and attention into that relationship with her at all. And as a result, I did hook up with her after I had children. And she was an aunt to, her brother gave birth to a little boy named Shane. And they bought a new house in Dedham. I went over and she came over and saw my sons. But I think she felt used. You know, I only called her because I wanted a playmate for my son. And her nephew was the same age as my son. And I think she saw that, you know, like, you're only calling me up now because your son, who's autistic back then, Alex, had no one to play with. So I think she felt used, and it kind of like petered out, you know, because she felt I was using her. I think I was. I didn't have any friends, and I wanted to reconnect with an old friend. You can't just reconnect with old friends because you're lonely and you have no one else. They'll pick up on that. They'll say, well, we haven't talked in years. Why are you calling me now? Yeah, I think that's what it was. She kind of felt used, like, oh, I wasn't invited to your wedding. You had nothing to do with me. Now you have a son who's autistic and has no one will play with him. And you know that I have a nephew his age. And so now you want to hook up and make play dates. How nice. You know, see what I'm saying? I was using her. So she picked up on that. And The relationship did not last the second time around at all. You can't use people, okay? You can't call an old friend because, oh, I need a... Someone said that in the comments. One of my subscribers said an old friend called because they needed a ride. You can't say, hey, look, I need, I get a colonoscopy. I need someone to take me because I can't drive home from that because I'm drugged. Can you do that? Gee, I haven't talked to you in a year, but I need a ride. No. No, no, no. You can't use people. People will pick up on that. They'll pick up on that you're calling them because you need something from them. You can't use people, no. You've got to put the time in for any relationship. What you put into something is what you'll get out of something. Now, my best friend Holly at 12 years, that's the longest relationship I've ever had. The problem with that is I never spoke up to her, okay? She didn't know me at all. You can know things about someone. It doesn't mean you know them. See what I'm saying? Julia knew me because she saw me psycho. She saw me in a rage. I slapped that girl. You know, Holly knew things about me, but she didn't really see the real me. And I don't think I saw the real her either. I think we both hid ourselves from one another because she was badly burned in relationships with friends. When she met me, she had recently, her best friend and her had split. And it was a very, very painful split. So I think she was trying to put on her best face, you know. I hadn't had a friend in years and decades when I met Holly. And I was feeling lonely. And she was another mother who had, you know, we had a lot in common. And so I think we were trying to put on our best face with each other. But that, you know, if you're trying to be so nice and because you want to, you know, make a good impression and you're really not talking about how you're feeling, you know, that's never going to work out. That's what I did wrong with her. I never really spoke up about things that she did that really bothered me, you know. And same with Linda, my friend Linda of 5 years. I met them both at the same park, not at the same time. But there's a park in my neighborhood that's only like a 5-minute drive. I could walk to it in a half an hour, less than a half an hour walk. I met both of those girls there. And I became friends. Linda's friendship lasted 5 years and Holly 12. And also they knew each other because I'd have parties and have both of them and their kids over. So they knew each other. They were friendly with each other too. But the problem with both Linda and Holly, I never really spoke up. I never said, you know, I should have said to Linda, you know, don't call me at work. I'm busy, you know. I don't want you calling me at work. With Holly, I should have said, you know, she would stand me up. I told you in another video, like that time we were going sledding, and she was supposed to drive, you know, pick me and my son up. Because we didn't have a car. My husband took the car to work. I don't remember, but there was no car. I think my husband was working and he took the car. So she was going to pick me up and we're all going to go in her warm, heated, heavy van. It was freezing that day. Like it was only like below zero, 30 degrees or something. And she kept, you know, calling me and say, oh, I'm going to be another hour. I'm not ready yet. And then she called me, oh, I can't make it. I'll probably be there in another hour. Another hour would come. I'd call her, you're not here. Meanwhile, my son was bawling his eyes out. Mom, you promised we'd go to the park. You promised we'd go sledding. You know, I said, okay, all right, let's just go. We'll walk there. A half an hour. Now, a half an hour walk isn't bad, but when it's like below zero, it was freezing. Eventually, Holly got her ass to the park. You know, I told her I'm already at the park sledding. Eventually, she showed up, you know. But I never told her, where the hell are you? You know, I had to walk here in the freezing cold. You were supposed to meet me at like 1 o'clock. Then you said, then 1 o'clock came. You said, I'll be there at 2. Then 2 o'clock came. You said, you'll be there at 3. Then 3 o'clock came, and my son is crying, Mommy, when are we going to go? When are we going to go? I never spoke up. She showed up. I never said a word. And then I made a big dinner for her and her family. See, if you don't speak up, you will resent the other person. And the bitterness will keep accumulating inside of you and accumulating and accumulating. And then just one day you're going to say, F it. I'm done with her. You know, and that's what happened because, you know, if your friend does something that upsets you, I should have said, you know, hey, you know, I'm really upset at you. See, the reason I didn't say that is if I had confronted her, I think she would have just taken her son, Michael, let's just go, forget it. And my son would have been hot sick. I was so afraid that if I confronted her about her, you know, being wicked late and having me have to walk, you know, when she was supposed to drive us, because she had a big van, you know, that she would have just taken her son, packed him up, and left, you know, and my son would have been bawling and upset at me. You see, so it was kind of one of those situations where, you know, our sons were good friends too. So, you know, I had to watch it. So it's never a good idea to get in a situation where that was a unique situation. With Linda, I did the same thing, but the difference thing is my son and her son were not friends at all. Not at all. Her son didn't care about my son, and the feeling was mutual. They didn't like each other. They didn't get along. They weren't friends. But me and Linda were friends. But she did the same thing. You know, I'd invite her to my son's birthday party, and she'd say, oh, yeah. And then she'd never show up. We'd get home, and there'd be a message on my answer machine. Oh, yeah, I couldn't make it. I mean, that's not right, you know? If you're good best friends with someone, you should respect, you know, if there is something important in their life, you should attend unless you have very good reason not to attend. You know what I mean? Because they're your best friend. And this woman would just call me up and spill all her problems out, and I never spoke up. This is my problem in relationships, that I didn't speak up and tell these people how I really felt. I would just let it sit and fester, you know, put on a good front, put on a good smile, right? And meanwhile, I'd be really boiling underneath, you know? You know, when a pot is simmering and it's bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and the lid's on it, you're putting a lid on it, and it's bubbling, pretty soon it's gonna, this happens to me in my cooking all the time, it's gonna explode all over the stove. Because it's gonna keep, you know, boiling more and more and more until the water's gonna, you know, the top's gonna come off and the water is gonna be all over the stove. And this is what I was doing. You get to the point where you don't speak up, at least with me, and I don't say anything, and it festers and festers and festers, and then just one day I said, that's it, that's enough. And so she called me, oh, Sandy, let's get together or something. I'd ignore the phone call. She called me again, hey, Sandy, you didn't call me back. Ignore it. Call me a third time. What's wrong? Are you all right? Please call me. I'm concerned about you. Instead of having enough guts to confront Linda and say, look, Linda, I'm fed up with you. You know, you only use me. You only call when you have problems. You knew my son's birthday. I told you about it well in advance. You said you were coming. You don't show up. You don't call. And then you leave a message on my answer machine after the party. Instead of confronting her and telling her all this, she probably had no idea. Why is she ignoring me, you know? So I did meet up with her later, and I talked to her about, I didn't tell her why, what happened. But she said, yeah, she was shocked. None of her friends ever had done that to her before in her life. And she was really shocked. But I didn't even tell her why I did that, you know? But that was it, you know. She got married and moved to California. I met her again at the gym one time when she was visiting her family, because her family lives in Boston. And we chatted, you know. I gave her my number. She never called me. But she was living in California, you know. But I mean, she wasn't angry. She didn't, at that point, she didn't hold any hard feelings for me. She just didn't want to be friends with me anymore. And that was okay. But there was no hard feelings between us. You know, we met at the gym, we chatted, you know, and that was it. But the whole point of this video is, you gotta see where, you know, the first one with Julia, I didn't invest enough time. I just put all my time into my husband, you know, and his family and my job. So I didn't invest myself in that relationship. That's where that went wrong. With Holly and Linda, I didn't speak up. I let my feelings, my hurt fester, and to the point where I couldn't take it anymore, and then I just had nothing to do with them. Instead of confronting them and talking about what they did that hurt me at that time, you know, it might have been able to change something, you know, if I could at least say, hey, look, you know, this hurts me, you know, and talking about it. They had no idea I was upset with them. None. Yeah, that's not good. That's not healthy. I wasn't communicating with them. So that was my role in those relationships. Those are the ones that I brought up. I can't bring up every one of my friends. I run out of time here. But here's the thing. Look at your past relationships and look at the role that you played in them. The role that you played in your part in the demise. Because a relationship is two people. So if you can look at that and analyze what you did wrong, maybe going forward, you can try to, you know, change that, you know, invest the time with your friend. Don't ignore them, like with Julia. Speak up when your friend does something that hurts you. Say, hey, look, that hurt me. Don't let it fester. You know, don't keep building. Speak up and tell them. Communicate, you know. Just a couple of pointers from my past about why I have all my those relationships ended. All right, take care. Until next time, have a great day.